What's up? My name is Alex Terranova. I am the host of the Dream Mason podcast. Welcome. We started this in 2017 because we wanted to highlight the journey of Dream Masons. There's a Dream Mason in all of us. A Dream Mason is someone who is awake to their dreams and driven by the passion, the purpose, and the desire to turn that dream into reality. We interview athletes, gold medalists, Super Bowl champions, artists, creatives, 8, 9 figure entrepreneurs, spiritual leaders, and everyone in between. And sometimes we even walk them through challenges that they're currently facing. So depending on whether you're catching this as a regular interview or a playing with problems segment, there is something for you, whether you're at the peak of your journey, at the low point of your journey. I look forward to having you join me on this journey. And I hope that this show helps you unleash your inner Dream Mason. What's up? Welcome back to the Dream Mason podcast. I'm your host, Alex Terranova. This morning, I'm talking about name anxiety, heat anxiety, wearing the same clothes every day. We're not going to get into all that, but we were just talking about that. So what do I want to share with you before we jump in and I introduce my guest? I found out something about him as I was getting to know him before we got on, which made me think about something that I've never talked about on this podcast, which is if you know me well, and you've known me for a few years, some of my friends will joke that I'm like a cartoon character because cartoon characters, like think of The Simpsons, always wear the same thing on every episode that never changes. And I do that. And it's not to the full extent of like, Homer Simpson, like same color shirt, same color pants, like everything identical, but it's basically identical. Um, some point in my late 20s, I was probably like, I don't know, 20, between 26 and 28. I just was like, man, I hate shopping. I hate dealing with all these clothes things. It's annoying. It's not like I'm getting credit for anything good I do here either. So what's the point of all this? And I started to just wear like black t-shirts. And then at some point along the way, it was like black t-shirts, shorts or jeans, and like pretty much flip-flops. I was living in Santa Monica, California, and I was like running bars and stuff and working in them. Um, and then I was like, "Oh, I think I actually would look better in a V-neck." So I started wearing V-necks and it evolved to all black V-necks. And then basically I found a pair of jeans that I liked, which was a company called Scargorn, which my brother had worked for, which is a denim company out of Venice Beach. And I really liked their jeans. So I started buying like their jeans in 3 different colors. So I got like the dark blue, the light blue that are torn up, and like the black. And I would have like the nice pair of each one and then the pair that I wore all the time. And then basically flip-flops and like maybe some Jordans or things that were just like, that I had. And I have like a bunch of new era baseball hats that I would like. So the changes would come in like the new era baseball hats, and the sneakers sometimes would be different, but usually I would be in flip-flops. And even my jewelry, like I wear bracelets, I wear rings. Sometimes people will say, "Oh, like how do you decide what you wear?" I'm like, "I don't. It's the same. The chain is the same every day. The rings are the same rings. Are there more of them? Yes, I don't wear them. The bracelets don't even come off. I shower in them, I jacuzzi in them, I do everything. If they fall apart or get destroyed, I'll get new ones." Um, but all of this is like it's not about anything more, which I didn't realize until over time. It was about simplicity. It was about like, I don't want to spend time shopping. I don't want to spend time trying things on. I don't want to spend time like having to figure out what to wear. Like I have better things and more enjoyable things to do in my life and my time. So even when I moved to New York City and now I needed some new things, it was like I found a pea coat that I liked and I bought 3 of them in 3 different colors. I found the boots that I liked, which are Bed Stews. I don't know if for people like that wear boots, I love this company, Bed Stew. And I buy their boots and I have 3 different colors of these boots. And even now I'm back in California, if you open up like my closet, there's probably like 10 pairs of jeans, but they're still all the same kind, all the same sizes. They're just some are newer and older than others. The t-shirts, well, there's probably about 50 of them because I don't also want to do laundry often because that's also a waste of time. I'd rather do like a huge bulk of laundry at one time than be doing lots of little things because I'm running out of clothes. So it's probably 50 t-shirts, all V-neck, all the same size, everything the same company, but now there's a bunch of different colors. And same thing with the hats, like tons of hats, change them out, whatever. That's where the change comes. And I still, when I want boots, shoes, socks, clothes, go online. I know what size, I know what I like. I just order them. Now, every once in a while, a wrench gets thrown into this mix um, because something will get discontinued and it like messes up my world. And But you got to say these are my big problems, which means something's working because if these are the big problems in my life, I'm living a pretty blessed, awesome life. And that's what this podcast is really all about. It's like, how do we help other people live better lives? Like whatever you want your life to be. I'm not saying you should wear the same shit every day like I do. That might not serve you. I don't care. But you should figure out what works for you so then your life works better for you. I'm talking about this seemingly random conversation because my guest today, when I was getting to know him before we got on, basically I said to him, share with me something that's like random that wouldn't be in the notes, from our producer. Like, our producer found him and is like, this is a guy we should bring on. He shows him to me. I'm like, sounds good. And, but I'm like, what's not in the notes? And he's like, well, I wear the same thing every day. And I was like, all right, wait, you got to tell me more about this. So we're going to talk about that for a second, why he does it, why other people do it. But let me tell you a little about him before we jump in. So the first thing I think that's cool to know, because I think most of the guests that come on here are probably ranged between their 30s and their 50s, probably like the median age in there somewhere. And every once in a while, I'll have a guest that's much older. We'll have a guest that's much younger. And this is one of those times. So our guest today he can't even legally drink in a bar. Um, I'm sure he drinks, but he can't legally do it in a bar. He's 20 years old. He's in college. He runs a podcast editing agency. He works with coaches and marketing agencies to expand their services and basically create like a white label service for this. He was the host of a podcast called Spreading Success, which was a top 100 podcast. He launched a podcast roundtable. He's basically just a young entrepreneur while he's in college, and he's also about to start another podcast. He's the CEO of Podblade. Welcome to the Dream Mason podcast, Rom Raviv.
Raviv, yeah.
See, there we go. Dude, we just talked about this. Rom Raviv. What's up,
Yeah.
man? Welcome to the podcast.
I'm so excited to be here. And yeah, you were talking about all those things with the minimalism. I just wanted to keep chiming in. I'm like, I gotta wait till it's my turn. You're doing a great job with that intro.
What do you got? Sure.
No, yeah, I was just saying for me, first of all, I stopped drinking and smoking a very long time ago. So I that's another kind of pointer to add.
So
But
you might never drink in a bar, basically, is what you're saying.
I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
listen, it's a decision I made a few months ago, probably like 6, 7 months ago. Once I took over my business, when it was just me, I had a partner, and now it's just me. And I said, "Hey, I'm doing this by myself. I can't be messing around anymore." Obviously, it's subject to change. I'm only 20. The black shirt thing might just be a fad as well, but it's something I enjoy now. I love the process, so I'm excited for now. But anyways, the thing that I wanted to add with the jewelry is I have the same necklace that I wear every day too. And so it's funny you're talking about that you have the same necklace, stuff like that. The reason why I actually don't do the V-necks, because I know you said you go with V-necks, because sometimes the necklace falls in. So I got a crew neck so that the necklace can go on top. So yeah, I just wanted to add that point for anyone who wants to try something similar.
It's it's a funny thing because people like really like to get ready and do all this stuff. And we're not saying that there's anything wrong with that, right? If that works for you, like,
I love
please,
that
like,
too. I love
yeah.
getting ready in my black shirt and my jeans. It makes me so excited. I love doing that stuff.
Dude, I am, yeah, and that is not, I'm just like, let's go. Let me just like get what I need and get out of here. This is not that important. Um, but I think like, I don't know about you, like for me, sometimes there's a consequence. Like sometimes if I have to get ready for something that I can't wear this, let's say, right? I'm going to a wedding or I'm going to something where I got to put something on. I'm actually like uncomfortable in like a suit because I'm like, I'm not a suit guy. Now I don't think there's a real thing of like a suit guy. Like a guy who wears a suit all the time would probably be uncomfortable dressing like me. He'd be like, what the fuck? This is not who I am. So I think it's about habit and there's consequences both ways. Do you find that like when you have to change out of the like everyday thing that you're like, oh, what is this? This isn't me.
Yeah, I mean, I try to go to extreme lengths to make sure that I don't have to switch. Like, for example, I have like a nice like vest that I try to wear, like a fancy one to try and like take it to the next level if I have to. But yeah, it is uncomfortable. It just doesn't feel like it's you. I like the black shirts and the jeans and whatever because it's very comfortable for me. I could wear it all the time. But even just as like a personal feeling, when you're wearing a suit and tie and there's buttons, there's just so many things and it's very tight. And so it just feels like I'm out of place. But when you have to do it, you have to do it. But I would just say overall, just having that system for me just makes my 99% of my life a lot easier and more comfortable to
Yeah.
live in.
Yeah, I think like I don't know that it's your goal or my goal to like quote unquote make our lives easier, but I think you're young and you're up to a lot of things, and I'm always up to a lot of things. And it's like if it doesn't serve me, like what's the purpose, right? If I got joy out of going shopping, like if that was fun and I like was like even whether I bought stuff or didn't buy stuff, I was like, oh, I really enjoy this experience, or I really enjoyed wearing different clothes as a way to express myself, then I think that would be silly for me to be like this. Like
Yeah.
actually feel honest and authentic getting to express myself, showing up like this. And um and when I have to do it in other ways, like when I'm just like you, when I have to go to like business events, usually I just put on a blazer. So I have like again, I have 6 blazers. They're different, they're not the same, but like I have 6 blazers. I put them on and all of a sudden people are like, "Oh, you look nice," right? And again, you don't wear the jeans with the holes. I wear the nicer version of the boots, but it's
Yeah.
basically the same, I'm a superhero and I have my uniform and that's just what I wear. Um, let's talk about something else. You're in college. I remember when I was in college, and college was not my most fun period of time. I really didn't want to be in college. I wasn't into it. I was like working in restaurants and bars at the same time. Um, but I know when I was in college, there was a lot on my plate from school. School wasn't like that easy for me. And then I would have like a job, right? And you probably have a social life and whatnot. But not only you don't just have a job, you have a podcast, you started a company, you're in school. How do you juggle like all these things and how do you prioritize?
Yeah, it's really crazy, especially because I'm in the honors program for my school. So when I first got in, I always had a passion for like business, but I always strive to be the best version of myself, even back in like high school and stuff like that. So I got very, very high grades. So I was accepted into the honors program for a full scholarship. And so I have to maintain a GPA as well. So I can't be one of those entrepreneurs that just drops out or fails, or else I'd have to pay all the tuition that I owed. And so the biggest thing for me is balancing that even at a high level, not even just balancing it. But I would say the number one thing is time blocking. I think especially nowadays with everything being online, it's a lot easier and you have more time rather than me having to go 3 hours to school there and back every day because I take the train to the city when there wasn't COVID. But yeah, time blocking is huge because even if you time block things that are just fun, like, okay, now I'm gonna play video games for an hour, now I'm gonna FaceTime this person. It really does help keep your life organized. I think that's the best way to do it. And I think when you do time block that kind of stuff, you realize you have a lot more time than you actually think.
So, will you break down time blocking, like, specifically for people that don't know what it is? Like, when you say time blocking, what are you specifically talking about? Like, what does that mean?
Yeah, so I use Google Calendar. It syncs with my Gmail, syncs with everything, and then I use Calendly. So for this appointment, I don't know if we use Calendly,
Mhm.
but essentially,
Yeah.
it's a I have a Google Calendar which I recommend no matter what you're in. If you're a student, if you're an older person, you have a business, whatever it is. I think being organized with your time is huge. So I have a Google Calendar which is set for me personally on the weekly view, and I have different colors for different activities or different areas of my life. So one is personal, one is personal development, another one is school, another one is one business, another one is the other business, another one is the podcast when I was running it. And yeah, just dividing all those things up is huge. I have my morning routine there, wake up and all the little things I do after that. And then I have a check-in, and then I have a daily meeting with the team. And so all these little things, while they might seem like common sense, oh, I'm obviously going to do those. Just having it on there and blocking that out, and knowing that when you have something on the calendar, you are going to do it, whether you like it or not, whether it's comfortable or not. And just kind of having that really makes your life a lot easier. I know it looks like it's counterintuitive because you don't have to think about what you have to do; it's all there for you. And so a lot of people are like, oh my God, you're doing so much. How do you have time for all this stuff? It's not stressful. I'm like, no, because I just see what I do. I just blindly look at this calendar, see what I have to do, and then do it. It's pretty simple.
I love that. I'm very much the same. It's fun. I learned these things a lot older though. I was in my 30s when I started to like use a calendar. I don't think even when I was running bars and restaurants, I would show up and be like, what do I have to do today and figure it out. Um, And I just knew like, oh, there's a time I have to go to work, right? Like, and I was there till I was done, but I never had like an actual schedule or a calendar. If I was going on a trip, I would just write a note or whatever. But in my 30s, I started to essentially what you would call time block. And just like you, everything is color coded by kind of like what if it's like for my coaching practice, is it for writing my next book? Is it for podcasting? Um, And you're right. It takes a lot. Again, it simplifies things because I don't have to figure out my day. I sit down and go, oh, I got Rom at this time. I have a client at this time. I have a consultation at this time. I'm getting a haircut. It literally is just like just follow the breadcrumbs. And at the end of the day, if you did all this shit on your schedule, you're successful basically. How do you use the times in between? Because I know how I do, like, right, I'm sure your day isn't from, like, the moment you wake up to the moment you go to bed blocked out. What about do you schedule meals, workouts? Like, what happens in the blank moments in between that nothing's planned?
Yeah, so those like eating and workouts and all that stuff is actually included in it because, like I said, I incorporate personal stuff and fun stuff into it. So I guess it's not every to every minute, but again, if I do catch a break, going on checking social media, checking in with the team, checking in with friends, because again, it's kind of so hard to relax. I'm running the business. I'm in college and I'm doing all this time block stuff. I'm in all these programs, and then it's like, wait, you're 20 years old, have some fun, So I think sometimes I forget to realize that, and I'm in this group called Wake Up Wealthy. It's like a personal development program for entrepreneurs, and it's just so interesting to see how they're all like 29, 30. They're like, man, if I was 20 years old learning this stuff and acting in this way, my life would be totally different. And so I'm just grateful to be in that place. But yeah, time for time blocking, fun stuff, working out and all that stuff is included. But when I catch a break, I like to kind of take that as a break and just kind of regenerate and just take a break for a sec.
What is you're talking about your team, that you have a team that you connect with.
Mhm.
What does that mean? Like, what is your team incorporate of? Like, how many people are on it? Who are you leading?
Yeah, so I have about 13 team members. These are mostly international. And so
Okay.
they are our editors. I have an operations manager. So for the podcast editing company, we have a few different positions. So we have the operations manager, we have editors, graphic designers, writers, and a blog writer. And so those are all kind of incorporated in that. We have weekly team meetings, and then I have a daily huddle with my ops manager to make sure everything is running smoothly and future projects and stuff like that. So yeah.
Are these I'm assuming you're probably like one of the youngest people like you're leading this thing and you're one of the youngest
I
people on it.
am.
Are you?
I
Yeah.
am. Yeah, I am. It's really cool to think about that because it's like I'm providing work and opportunity for these people, and they have families, and it's like I don't even have that yet. It's super super crazy. I'm super grateful to be a part of it, but it's really really
What's the
awesome.
biggest challenge for you when it comes to like leadership, like leading a team?
I think the biggest challenge was for me just understanding that the people that work for you, one, you're on the same team, and two, that they're actually humans with real, because a lot of people don't really understand that with whether it's virtual or in person. They just think, oh, I'm the boss, they got to listen to me, they got to do all this stuff. But when I remember when I first started hiring some of the first few people, they would call me boss, and I'm like, oh no, no, that don't call me that. Like we're on the same team here. There's no levels. Obviously, you have to establish that you make the decisions and stuff like that. And but there's a way to do it, and so I think just realizing that has been huge for me because when I first started, I came fresh out of high school and I was like, oh man, I took a business class in high school. I know everything. I know how it works. I'm gonna be the next Jeff Bezos. They don't know what they're talking about. And then just came with all that confidence. And then I didn't really have any empathy because I was just so immature. To think it was only 2 years ago is really crazy, but yeah, I just really kinda overlooked that, the fact that they are real people, real families, real emotions, and they have great input, and they have lives and stuff like that. I just really didn't take that into account because, again, I was so young, I didn't really have, a good concept of what it meant to have a team and have someone working for you, working as part of the team, and really treating them like a family. I know people just kind of generalize that, but I think it's really important, for a culture, especially if it's virtual. So yeah, some big, big things I learned there very, very early on.
So when you look at your gaps in leadership, like where do you think there's to grow, right? Like it's early on in your leadership and your entrepreneurial journey. Where do you already know like, hey, where do I need to grow to get to the next level?
Yeah, I think for me, it's kind of the opposite of that. I think sometimes it's being too nice and being too flexible and be like, oh, it's fine if you don't do this, fine if I try to be as there's a balance, right? You want to be extremely open and kind and acceptance of things come up, but at the same time, you don't want to just continue to let things slide. So I think that's a balance that I really need to learn because I'm mostly on like the empathetic side. And just oh, you can't attend this meeting, no problem. But then it's like they do it 20 times, and it's like, oh, you don't want to keep saying it's no problem, but you don't want to start something. So I think that's the biggest thing for me. So I got one side of it right now. I just need to balance it with the other moving forward.
And then let's look at it from outside of you. If you were, let's say you were teaching, I don't know, let's say some of your friends came to you and were like, we want to start companies. And they said to you, hey, what's a good leader? Like what makes a good leader? What would you tell them or share with them?
Yeah, I think first of all, none of my friends have ever asked me that, and I don't think any of them will at age 20. Most of my friends don't really have any interest in that kind of stuff, which is super hard to balance, by the way. But
You need new friends. No, I'm
I
just
do.
kidding.
I'm actually moving to Florida in a few months now, so hopefully that'll help kind of refresh things. But yeah, I mean, the good leaders is really the biggest thing is understanding the whole purpose of the team and then kind of acting in that alignment, because a lot of people, they just have a team and they just want to manage them, but they're not really organized with the end goal. They just talk about like short-term projects and stuff. But with that, having those long-term goals and making your team feel like they're a part of that, right? Not just saying, here's my goals for 2021. Here are our goals. We are growing. And I think even just a small thing, whenever I talk to the team, it's always me. It's never I. It's never you. It's always we. Even if it's not always grammatically correct, I always say that. Even if I'm saying like, hey, can we please make sure we're attending the meetings? Always. And I guess that might be like a personal thing, but I just think people react better when it's more of a collective effort rather than you just targeting them out for good and for bad things. So yeah.
What do you think makes what do you think makes good team members?
I think communication is probably the biggest thing that I've noticed. The best team members are the ones that are communicating and they meet the deadlines, but they're doing it in a way that kind of corresponds with the whole team. So in except for example, if you have a question, don't be afraid to ask the whole team. And a lot of people get nervous about it, but I think communication overall is the best sign of a team member. There have been times where people have said, or they've held back from me that, they've been going through some things at home. They don't want to, make me get mad or whatever, even though they know. I always tell them I don't bite. It's so hard because it's like a cultural thing as well. But it's like, I don't bite. If there's something going on, please let me know. I want you to let me know. I'm not going to get mad. And so sometimes still, some of the team members fear that I'm going to get mad or something going to happen, but at the end of the day, just the team members that are some of my best are the ones that are always open about that kind of stuff, even if they know it's not exactly what I want to hear. And we obviously work around that to make sure it works for everyone.
Let's talk about entrepreneurship for a second in the same vein. Like you're young, you're an entrepreneur. I know you shared with me before we started that you like are into, Gary V and I'm assuming there's other people like him that you also look up to and follow and learn from. What does entrepreneurship mean to you? Like what do you see it as? What is entrepreneurship?
For me, and I know this sounds super basic, but for me, it's freedom. And the goal for me when I first started college was to escape the 9 to 5 before I graduate. I know it's just all like generic stuff, but for me, I kind of view entrepreneurship as, especially in nowadays, as the three freedoms. And for me, the three freedoms are time freedom, financial freedom, and location freedom. And that's kind of, for me, it's kind of like, okay, like I beat the system. Like I did it. I escaped. I found my purpose, my passion, and I'm able to do it from anywhere, because there are a lot of people that have financial freedom, but they have no time to actually enjoy it. And they have to stay, in their place to go to an office. And so I think for me, just those freedoms, especially now with the online world, is really one of the biggest things and one of the biggest reasons why I actually pursued it in the first place.
What's the difference from what you've learned between, entrepreneurs that, maybe not like that turn out like Gary Vee, but what's the difference between successful entrepreneurs and the rest of them?
Yeah, I think it really lies within a lot of it has to do with their mindset and their daily habits. And this was actually me, like, already a year ago when I was not waking up on time. I didn't have any schedule. I took a cold shower maybe, once every 2 weeks if I was feeling hyped, didn't really have a commitment and to a certain schedule. And now obviously everything is time blocked. But I think it really, the great leaders and the great entrepreneurs, it kind of comes down to themselves as a person, and that reflects back to their business. So it's more about themselves at that stage rather than the business itself. So I think kind of mastering yourself would allow you to master your business and lead for massive success.
Nice. Yeah, I really like to think of humans as like if we were like a car. Now, if you like don't take care of your car, it's gonna not last long. When you need it to get you somewhere, it's not gonna be reliable or worthy. When you need to when you fill it with people and have, everybody's responsibilities in there, you're probably not gonna get the output. It's gonna run slower, it's gonna run more ineffective. It's not even gonna feel good like inside, right? The seats are gonna be beat up, maybe the radio doesn't work. And if you take care of your car, it's gonna last longer, it's gonna run better, it's gonna help get people to where they need to go. It's gonna be a more enjoyable experience when you're using it. And it's kinda like our lives. Well, our lives are the vehicle that makes everything else happen, right? Like if we don't take care of us, meaning not just like the food we put in and the exercise we do, but like the mind work. Like if we don't exercise our minds, like we need to take care of that engine and we don't do the things like you're saying, like scheduling out, planning, like making sure we're essentially living in commitment and integrity, then our lives can't run on like a high level. It's just not possible. Um,
Yeah.
it's funny. I don't know if I would want to be in this conversation when I was 20. Like, I don't know if I'd wanna it's interesting because right? It's cool now. Like, entrepreneurship is like this cool thing.
Yeah.
Young people, I know you said your friends don't ask you these things, but, like, there's a changing tide in the world where people aren't like yes, people still wanna become like musicians and actors and like, rock stars and athletes, but 20, 30 years ago, nobody was like in their 20s, like, I want to be an entrepreneur. Being an entrepreneur is like cool. And now it's a thing, right? You see it.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of culture about, "Oh, I'm a CEO, business owner," and it's exciting to see because, I mean, I think, like, I've always had the passion for it, and for me, a lot of them do it for the money or for, some other materialistic stuff, but for me, I said, "It doesn't matter for me, how much money I make." Obviously, for the long term, I wanna keep growing and have wealth and stuff like that, but for me, in terms of whether I would ever leave entrepreneurship, if I was making the amount of money I needed to, like, bare minimum survive, like, I wouldn't leave it. It's just the passion of it and just the ability to be free. I think it all comes down to the freedom, and a lot of people who are entrepreneurs who do work these crazy hours but are kind of limited to their location, or even people who work a job, they can't just go out to 6 months to, I don't know, England for 6 months and just have everything work exactly the same, and I think that's kind of that freedom alone is worth way more than, making X amount of money at a job or anything like that. It doesn't matter even if it's more, which it won't be if you build out, systems and you do things the right way, because that's kinda how the system is designed. If you build things out the right way as an entrepreneur, you can scale and scale and scale. There's no scalability for the most part in, like, a job unless it's, like, sales or something like that. So, yeah, I think that's kind of the biggest thing for me in terms of like purpose and why I do it. But yeah, I mean, it's a good thing there's a hype because new things are being built, new ideas are actually coming to life. So it's very very exciting to be a part of this new generation.
Where do you think you're going? Right. And we talked about like you have these companies that you're starting, but and I don't want to go ahead like 20, 30 years, but like just in like the next 3 years from now, like where do you see yourself?
Yeah, it's super hard because even last year, if you told me that I would be where I am now, the things I would start, I would not believe you. That's just kind of how it is. But for me, some of the big goals of mine are to start that new podcast I was telling you about and really really make an impact. The goal with that podcast isn't to make $1 million off it. It's to actually be able to travel the world and interview these soccer players about their financial habits, like I mentioned earlier, but to do so while building relationships with these players. So, for example, I'm a huge soccer fan, and that's kind of where the idea came from. And so, to be able to go to games for free and build a relationship with the team managers and stuff like that, that's just a huge goal for me. And to do that while educating the financial youth on how to manage their money, and if they won't listen to some random finance guy about it, hopefully they'll listen to it through the lens of their favorite soccer player. So that's a huge goal of mine, and I'm really excited to see how that plays out. Um, in terms of the editing company, really to just scale at a higher level. I mean, and to offer more services. That's why I launched the podcaster roundtable to serve these clients at a higher level. The goal is to be, one of the biggest podcast editing companies out there. And I think it works very well for that path to happen because we're actually working with podcast editing companies for our company, right? So they're white labeling our services. So it's really exciting to see how the scalability is definitely there. and to just yeah, it's I'm moving to Florida, so that's a whole new change. I mean, maybe if you asked me this question in 6 months, I've had a whole new plan, and that's what I love about this stuff, especially being so young, that this is all so malleable, right? The black shirt thing, tomorrow I could say I love green shirts or I love designer stuff, and I can change like that, right? As a Jewish person myself, I keep the Sabbath, so from Friday night sundown to Saturday night sundown, I don't use my phone, I don't use my TV, I don't write, I can basically only read and sleep. I can't turn on the lights, and so none of my family does that, by the way. That's a complete decision that I made. It's not any outside influence. And so stuff like that, I started doing that about a year ago. Next month I could say, hey, that's not for me anymore. So I think just overall, just being so young and learning all this stuff now, knowing what I want or the direction, at least the direction I want to go in, is really, really huge. And that's why I'm so blessed to be so young to be able to say, hey, I don't want to do this. That's fine. I don't have to do this. I'm not committed where I have all these bills and kids and married and all that stuff that I can't just drop everything and switch if I really wanted to.
So basically, what I hear from you, right, whether it be from entrepreneurship or clothing to religious beliefs, is like it's all like a big experiment.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think some people are either forced to do these things, like especially in the religious side or with business stuff like that. And I'm blessed where I don't have to kind of do that stuff. And so I think it actually just experimenting those things, especially when you're young and right, some people experiment, but they don't have the knowledge that you and I have about time blocking and scheduling stuff like that. So to be able to make those decisions while having that knowledge at such a young age gives me the power to try so many more things in a lot more tested ways and ways that I can really find fulfillment. Like, for example, this black shirt thing I tried a year ago. It feels weird when I don't wear a black shirt, and I love it. My mom says I'm weird. My dad says I'm weird. My friends are like, "Dude, don't you have any style? Like, you're so boring. Like, why are you wearing the shirt? Like, you want other shirts? Like, we can get you other shirts." I'm like, "No, black shirts." Like, they're literally offering to get me new shirts, and it's funny because back in high school, I was the complete opposite. I loved this clothing brand named Kith, kind of like a Supreme thing, and I would buy all their shirts, all the cool styles. I would get all these nice fancy shoes. Then I realized it's not up to me and it's not like my thing. And next year I could say, hey, I'm back in this designer thing, or hey, Saturdays are my day to travel and have fun. I don't want to just stay at home and not be and again, it's a reflection day, but not be able to just do that stuff. I want to go on my phone. I don't want to do that stuff. So again, doing that so early just gives me that time, because when I'm older, let's say 30, I won't have that ability. I mean, I obviously can change and stuff, but it's not going to be as easy and malleable as it is right now because I don't have any huge commitments that I need to attend to immediately.
It's possible. I'm almost 40, and
It's definitely possible. It's just it becomes a lot harder when you have different commitments.
you might be the no, I'm trying to think. I had this one guy on the podcast. I'm like, shit, you just got me like really present to like I'm 19 years older than you. No, I don't think I look 19 years older than you, but I'm 19 years older than you. And I'm like, in a way, like I'm not living what I think I've learned is like in that journey is like you actually can live life however you want it, right? If you want to live life this way and that serves you and you love it. Somebody's like playing a flute outside of I'm recording. I'm like, what is this nice music? I'm sorry, I'm like distracted. I'm like, there's a genie about to pop up. Um, but I think what's cool is like you actually can decide it you want it that way. I decided a long time ago that I didn't want the cookie cutter life. Like I didn't want when I was young and I was like in my teens, I was like, oh, I want to be a young dad. I want to like have a family super young. And then when I got into my early 20s, I was like, I don't that's not what I want. Like that's fine. There's nothing bad about that. But I realized in my 20s and even into my 30s, like I was like, I don't want that. I don't want to have like just have a job, have a family, kind of do the same thing day in and day out. Like that for me was not going to fill my heart up. And I needed to find my own way to do that. So I probably wouldn't even be an entrepreneur and have the businesses and things I had if I had followed that path. I'd be somewhere else. But I think like we have to get honest. We have to get honest with ourselves about like what do we want? Because we can create it however we want and we can make whatever we want happen, but we can't try to do what everyone else wants us to do and what everyone else thinks is right and follow our own path at the same time. And I love when you talk about the soccer thing, because what I wrote down is like, hey, it's this idea, and I talk about this a lot, is like passion to profit. Instead of profit to retirement or whatever, right? However, but that's the old model, right? People were just like, oh, I gotta get money. I gotta get money. I gotta get money. And it seems like there is, even Gary Vee's changing. Gary Vee used to be all about like hustle, 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 hustle. And now there's like other things that matter. Your happiness matters, your quality of life matters. There's a different Gary Vee that's emerging. Um, and I hear that with the soccer thing. And that's a big message I hope people take away is, hey, find something you're excited about that gets you out of bed. Like you're like, I love soccer. Well, how do I make soccer into a business? Well, I like podcasting. Okay, well, what if I podcast about soccer, but I don't do it about soccer? I do it about money or entrepreneur. It's like
It
really
combines
creative.
everything together. It combines like my 3 passions:
Yep.
soccer, business, and podcasting. So it's
Hmm.
just kind of the perfect blend of everything. And it really attracts a unique audience. Not just trying to make a generic business podcast. That was a problem I made where I interviewed everyone. You're an entrepreneur, you have a business, come on my show. You're an influencer, come on my show. And then for the people, the listeners who cared about entrepreneurs, they wouldn't listen to the influencer ones, or the people that like the influencer ones wouldn't. So they would just skip out on only listen on
Yeah.
certain episodes. And so I really want to create that consistency. And if I like these things, I know there'll be a bunch of other people who like the same concepts, or who are open to the idea and want to learn more about behind the scenes of their soccer play. Even if they don't really care about the financial stuff, just listening to behind the scenes of their favorite player is value and it's insight. And even for me, I just love that. So yeah, just finding the way to combine these three things has been a very, very huge thing for me.
I want to ask you something that I don't know if you've ever been asked, and I don't even know if you'll know how to answer it, but I'm just going to go with it here because that's how I do this. Um, what do you think is like the biggest gap in you, like personally, not the thing you have to learn, but like the trait or quality or something about you that you think you're going to have to change or evolve or transform so you can like reach the pinnacle of where you want to get to?
Yeah, that is a crazy question. Even at 20, there's just so many things that I know. I think I'm very self-aware to know sometimes like what things I need to adjust and stuff like that. But at 20 years old, it's going to be a different answer than when I'm
Of
25 or
course.
30. But I think
Sure.
for me right now, the biggest thing is balancing the age difference for me, because most of my clients, most of my team members, most of my online friend entrepreneurs, they're at least like 25 to 30 and they have kids, they're married. And for me, I'm 20, but like mentally, I'm 25, 30 at least. Some people 35, they're like, oh, I feel like I'm talking to someone my age. So the hardest part for me right now, and what I think is kind of going to help once I master this, or when I become older and that won't be an issue, is just realizing I'm 20. I'm allowed to have fun. If I want to play video games for an hour a night after working an 8-hour day, I can do that. And I don't need to feel guilty about it, right? Because everyone's like, hustle, hustle, hustle. But then they're like, just live your life, just experience. If I want to drink, and that's another thing, I'm experimenting, right? Maybe I want to try it, next week or next month. And I'm just so open to all these new things because it allows me to figure out what I like and what I don't like. But just kind of balancing that. Same thing with like a girlfriend, right? I'm living my mind as like a 30-year-old person, right? And so people my age don't understand how I think, understand how I talk, understand what entrepreneurship or Facebook ads even are. So it's kind of hard to relate to them. So it's like, how do you balance that with like, okay, this is who you are, and then you kind of have to be that other person for people your age and be relatable at the same time. It's just so many different moving pieces because I just relate to so many different things, because one, because of my age, the other one because of my maturity level. So it's super hard. But I think once I master that, I think I'll become a much more well-rounded person. I think a lot of the times my brain and my maturity at the moment usually tilts towards that entrepreneurship and that older kind of mentality and time blocking, um, which none of my friends relate to, and that's completely fine. Again, there's no wrong or right answer; it's just a preference. But I think once I do that, it'll help a lot more areas of my life to just become more well-rounded.
I want to touch on that really quick. Do you date? Do you like have this kind of like does whoever you date look at your calendar and like what the hell, man? Like what's that like?
Yeah, I had a girlfriend for about a year and a half when I was 18 and I just started getting into the scene. It was very, very difficult. We didn't have much in common. I talked to him like, hey, like, when do you want to hang out? Like, I'm free, Friday at this time, whatever. She'd be like, what am I, just another client? Like, why do I have to be on your schedule? And I'm like, I'm trying to make as much time as I can for you and balancing everything else. And they're like, oh, I'm not just another client for you. It's like, oh, you want to go on a date? Like, oh, I have to schedule an appointment with you. It's like, it's like they just don't get it. And I'm like, it's just so frustrating. But I'm actually talking to a girl right now, and she seems to kind of at least again, you don't have to do it. I don't expect you to do it. Just
Yeah.
kind of get where I'm coming from and just see why I do these things, and why everything I do is actually in the best interest of you, to give more time, financials, just happiness, just everything. And so, um, yeah, I do. It's been pretty interesting, especially at 20, because again, I'm thinking at this age, but then I have to be relatable to, both male and female my age, because I want to have friends and I also want to do this. But then, you turn on the lights in this entrepreneurship world, and I got to be this leader who's leading a team of 13, starting multiple podcasts, having a coaching bit, like all this stuff. It's like those are not the same people. They can't be the same people because they won't relate to either person. If I'm the 20-year-old Rom when I'm on my team meeting, that's going to be a very, very bad team meeting, and it's not going to be okay because there's standards, there's way you talk to people, for different areas. So yeah, I try to do the whole dating experience, but again, it's just super hard balancing those things. But again, just it's all about finding someone that at least understands. Again, do whatever you want. You don't like time blocking, that's completely fine with you, but just understand where I'm coming from. And again, I don't need you to understand how to launch an ad set for a Facebook ad, but at least pretend to care sometimes about what I'm doing, and I'll pretend to care about your habits and stuff like that. But um, it's just all about the effort. We don't need someone to fucking understand how all this stuff works.
I um I think relationships and dating are such a, if you could go back and if I could go back and do it again, it wouldn't change anything because I think then everything would be different. But if you know where you want to go, just like you run your business, you would date different. Not you
Yeah,
specifically, but people, right? If you know, hey, I want to be married with kids by 25, then at 20, you need to be like asking people what they want. What, are they is the same religion important to you or the same politics important to you? Do they
yeah.
want to have kids? What places do you want to live? And you can't be going out with people that don't fit that. You can't waste time
I'm
because you're
already I'm
actually
already doing that.
right. You're
Yeah,
on your way somewhere. And if you were like me, who was like, I don't, then I could date and waste time with anyone as long as I was having a good time because I wasn't trying to get to a like an end zone or a goal. Like it was just the goal was fun basically.
yeah,
Um, and I think like people don't relate to dating just like any other goal that they have in their life. Like it's just like anything else. What do you want the outcome of this thing to be? And then relate to it. I love that you're like, hey, I don't care that they do what I do, but they kind of got to understand what I do because if they're
yeah,
going to be with me, they got to understand. It'd be like dating someone and they don't know what you do for a living. That'd be weird if you had a girlfriend, you're like,
yeah,
I don't know where she works. Like that'd be odd. Or I
yeah.
don't know
And
what religion she is or like,
I
um
think for me, it's just I think I've always been like this. I'm a very logical and calculated person. So, and it sounds weird, but like with dating, I'm always thinking about like long term and like ROIs, and like I just have this business mind that with friendships and everything, I'm always thinking about, even if it's like intangible ROIs, like company, or you're able to talk to them about personal issues. Like I'm always thinking in that way. I think that's just how I've been um brought up by, I don't know, by society or whatever. I just think that's just how I am. I always take very calculated steps, and I don't, if it doesn't align, like I can tell like almost immediately whether someone's going, whether not if they're going to be the one, but whether they have a potential to be the one, right? There's certain criteria that obviously I have, whether, internally, that I can see. And so I'm kind of like that at that stage right now. Obviously, I don't have any crazy goals for marriage. I can't even spell marriage at age 20, but I'm thinking of that, right? Because again, if and I know you said you kind of like, or not you, but in general, some people just want to have fun and they don't really have any goal with it. But for me, my fear would be like, okay, I would go in with that mentality, and then I would catch real feelings, and then okay, now I'm stuck in a situation where I've fallen in love with a person that doesn't align with my values and my goals, and that's a problem because
hey,
then
now you're telling my life story. How do you know this about me? This is my whole career of dating.
I,
Fall in love, have fun, fall in love with people that don't have the same values or vision of a future that you do.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't mean to call you out there. I'm just saying, like,
It's all
what
good.
my fear of was
It's
what
a
would
real thing
happen.
though.
Yeah, yeah, especially with religion, because for me, like, a big thing is religion. And like there was a point where I was, when I was in high school, I was like, all right, whatever, you can mess around with people that aren't the same religion. But for me, for a culture, how your kids want to be raised, the level of attention, stuff like that, like right now at this point, I wouldn't date someone that didn't have the same values and same religion as me. One, with your religion, Judaism, they don't even allow you to do that, even if you wanted to. But also, so it's like a family thing, but plus like a value and cultural thing. So I'm already looking at that now because again, I don't want that to happen where, this person's great. They're not, they have a different belief or they have different values, but it's okay because we're just 20 and we're just talking. And then it becomes 25. And it's like, shit, I love this person. They're my everything. But they don't like how are our kids going to be raised. And it's crazy. I'm 20. I'm talking about kids. Like, man, I don't, it's just so crazy to be having these conversations because like my friends who are 20 are not thinking about this. And it's really cool to come on a podcast like this as well, where I kind of really get deep into that kind of older side of me and how that corresponds into the life of a 20-year-old right now.
It's funny that we even relate to it as weird because you're like, "Oh, it's weird to talk about, and this is not just you, but dude, I have clients that are in their mid-20s, 30s, and they're like, think it's weird to have some of these conversations. But it's funny because if I said to you, "Hey, let's talk about how much money you're gonna make," like what your money goals are, and you were like, "Oh, I wanna make," I'm just making this up. Let's just say you were like, "I wanna make this many millions of dollars by this age." That wouldn't be weird. That would be totally normal. If you told me what if you had fitness goals, "Hey, I wanna be in like this good a shape by this period," that wouldn't be weird. But we do this weird thing like with relationships and kids where we think like looking into the future and just saying what we want is like this very abstract, very
Yeah,
terrifying, very silly, and it's
that's
exactly the
true.
same. It's when if your kid is like 10 and your kid tells you they want to be a professional athlete, like we should encourage that. Maybe they will, maybe they won't, but like
Yeah.
to try to protect them from being hurt is like actually lying to them about what life is like. Like some stuff happens, some stuff doesn't. And it's kind of the same thing, like to say, like, I want, hey, 10 years from now, you're 20, like when I'm 30, maybe you want something, maybe you don't. It's not weird to say it, but it's like our culture ingrains us in this idea that like, oh, we should set goals for every area of our life except for relationships.
I think it's
Let's
scary.
let's
That's
just leave
why.
it to chance. Yeah,
Yeah,
totally.
yeah, I think there's just a lot of things where it's like one of the biggest commitments you have is someone you see every day in the morning, at night, your kids and stuff. It's huge. So people don't want to mentally commit or manifest that stuff. Um, and I do a lot of manifesting as well with like especially gratitude journaling, like what I'm grateful for. Like I'm grateful for, if I'm talking to someone the same values, like that's huge. Like a lot of people just overlook them, like, oh, by chance I met them. Like I really do believe everything happens for a reason. So I really do take that gratitude in, but it is definitely something that's scary and it's long term, especially me at 20, like thinking about that. Cause actually one of my first girlfriends when I was 18 to like 19 and a half wanted to get married at like 2021. And it's like a cultural thing. And I was like, oh my God, like this is crazy. Like I don't even know how to spell marriage. How am I supposed to be thinking about all this stuff? It's just in her culture, but it was just crazy. I couldn't do it because I'm just not I'm just not ready at that point. But yeah, it's very, very scary. And I do take it seriously. But I also know that I am 20 and I don't have to, find the one like tomorrow or else I'm screwed. It comes naturally and it comes at the perfect time that you need it to. So I'm just very, very aware of that and grateful for the process.
Thanks for opening up and like just letting us explore the conversation because I think not just for you, but it's an interesting conversation that you're right. It's scary and that's why people don't want to do it. But you also said it's the most important thing. Like for most people, not everyone, but for most people,
Family.
family, love, whether family be just like two people together or like kids and a bunch of other extended people, for most people, most of the time, family and love are the most important thing in their life. Yes, we need to be healthy and we need to have money so we can do stuff. But at the end of the day, if you strip away the family and the love and you got money and health, you might be lonely and like sad that you don't have that thing. That's what people really want. And it's pretty wild just to think that the thing that we want most is the thing that most of us refuse to set goals around.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
That's actually a quote, you run away from the thing you need the most. And so I think that just kind of encompasses that as well. But I mean, same thing with money. People are scared to like manifest that sometimes too. It's like someone's scared to say, "Oh, by this time I'm going to make $100,000 a month," because people don't they don't believe that they're actually capable of doing it. And so they're scared, right? I'm gonna find the perfect wife that has this characteristic, this characters, this, loves this, hates this, whatever. People just don't think that's possible, and so they are scared to say it and it not come true, when
Mhm.
them saying it and manifesting it is actually what makes it happen. And so, yeah, I definitely think that's something that they just need to just go ahead and speak what you really want, and it will come true with manifestation and just long term working towards that, right? Like if you say you want this perfect wife, but you're like you don't go out or you don't make an effort, it's not going to happen. Same thing with business. You want $1 million a month, but you're not working like someone who makes $1 million a month. You're not becoming that person who's worthy of it. You're not going to get it. It's not like rocket science. You do the thing, you manifest it, you see the vision, and then you work towards it. And that works with dating, that works with relationships, with business, it works with everything.
Nice. Yeah. Is there anything else you want to wrap up before we wrap up that you want to share that you want to say to the audience, before we let you go for today?
Yeah, it's kind of difficult because I'm trying to relate to everyone while being 20, but I think the biggest thing for me, whatever it is that you want, whether it's a relationship or whether it is the business, I would say the biggest step for me is to make that first momentum step. And I know it just sounds so cliche, just get started. But for me, for example, when I was starting my podcast, I was scared of doing it in high school. So I waited till college. I knew I wanted to do something with like a show or like a business, but I didn't know what it was. And it wasn't until I went to a business event, put myself out there, listened to someone talk about how important podcasting was, that I actually took that first step. And that first step was actually ordering the microphone while the person was still speaking at the event. I said, that's it.
Nice.
I'm too motivated. I have to do it. I ordered it. And that's kind of what led to the momentum. So if
Love
you're
that.
listening to this and there's a business you want to start, there's a podcast you want to start, there's a YouTube channel you've ever wanted to start, just take that first step. And that's what I talk about in some of my podcast coaching. Just whether it's just ordering that first piece of equipment, messaging that first guest, creating your first cover, naming the podcast, just doing that first step puts you in that momentum. And an object in motion stays in motion or wants to stay in motion. So when you get that first step, it just starts snowballing. And that snowball and building that first snowball is doing that first action step. So that's one of the biggest things I've learned from really everything. And again, that applies to all things in life.
I love that. I hear that really to me as like, it's just like you just got to get started. Where a lot of us have been trained to like figure it all out, get it right, do it, plan, prepare, all these things. It's like, no, just start. You didn't like write a dissertation before you rode a bike for the first time. You didn't watch like 100 YouTube videos on how to ride a bike for the first time. You literally were a little kid and you went out and you sat on a bike and someone held it and you rode and you fell and then you got back on. Like that's actually life. It's try and fail and try again and fail, and then eventually you do it. It's just how things work.
Yeah, that's
Um,
why I experiment so much too, because again, you don't even know what you want. So try a bunch of things, take that first step for a bunch of different things. If it resonates with you, keep going. If it doesn't, just stop. But that's again why I'm so grateful to be doing it at this age.
Rom, how do people find you, follow you, keep in touch with you? What handles do they need to know? What do you need to tell them?
Yeah, so for anyone who's kind of up to speed, I am on Clubhouse. So my Clubhouse is just Rom Raviv. My Instagram is also at Rom. Basically, everything is just at Rom Raviv, and ROMRAVIV, just for pronunciation there. But yeah, that's kind of the biggest thing. The podcast that's coming out in a few months is called Golden Goals. I don't know when this releases, but if you are a soccer fan or you want to see how athletes kind of manage their money on the back end, tune into that. And yeah, and if you have any podcasting questions, whatever it is, I'm always here. I absolutely love it. I'm not going to upsell you on some course or whatever. I'm just here to provide value and basically share things that I wish I knew when I was first getting started. And yeah, I'm always here. My DMs are open. My email is open, and I'm just here to provide value and have fun at the same time, man.
Well, man, thanks for being here. Thanks for talking about the things that you're like super comfortable with that you knew we were probably going to talk about, but then also diving into the things that you had no idea that I was going to bring up, and just letting us explore those. Also, thanks for following. I'm really like grateful and passionate that you're following your passion and doing your thing, and you're doing it in your way, right? You're going to college, you have a business, you're doing these you're dating, you have friends, but you're also like, hey, I'm trying to figure out how this all works for me and not just trying to make it work for everyone else. I love that. Thanks for not making me feel bad about wearing the same thing every day too. I know there's more of us out there, you, me, Dr. Dre, and a few other people. Uh, Everyone listening, I know that you got value from something in this episode. Uh, please share the episode with somebody that who you know will get value. There's something in this for everyone. Uh, who's that person that in your life that like needs to hear this, whether they be young or older or struggling or killing it? Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for listening. Honestly, I'm just a rebel who found a cause and has a dream, and I'm super grateful for your support. If you got anything from this, please help me out and share this podcast with one person today. You can find me at thedreammason.com or at inspirationalalex on Instagram. You are a dream mason because your dreams don't build themselves.